Moving on. Moving on. I wanted to watch something with you guys. Okay? And I would like to politely disagree, just politely and only a little disagree with some of the stuff in the TikTok. So let's watch. Okay? It's a clip titled, People So Mad in the comment sections of this TikTok, but she's so real for this.
Something I'll literally never get is when people are like, I can't cook. Like, what does that mean? Literally, what do you mean by that? Like, what does someone mean when they say that? If someone walked up to me and was like, make a chicken casserole, I couldn't just make a chicken casserole. But if they gave me a recipe, I could make a chicken casserole. Like, is it not just following a set of really fucking basic directions? Like, I don't get it. Like, do not just read it, follow basic directions and do it. Like, you might mess up a few steps or something, but if you're like past the second grade level, can you not just follow it? Like, it's not gonna be perfect, but you're gonna make something. Like, even if I'd never made anything in my life, I'd be confident that I could cook. If someone's like, can you cook? Like, what do you mean you can't cook? Like, you're too young to use the oven? Like, I just don't get it. Maybe you don't have an oven. Fair. Maybe you don't want to cook. Also fair. But it doesn't mean you can't cook. Like, you can pay someone to cook. You can buy your meals. You can eat ramen. Like, whatever floats your boat, whatever you need to do financially. But, like, to say, like, you can't cook, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
That wasn't looping. We just finished it. So I agree with some of it. I disagree with some of it. Okay, let her cook. First thing I would say, there's a lot of motherfuckers that say, I can't cook. And what they mean is, I don't want to cook. I don't want to have to read a recipe. I don't want to have to put things in a pot. You know? And the reason they say that, in my opinion, is when a lot of people say, I can't cook, what they mean is, I don't know any recipes off the back of my hand. Is that the saying? And going and looking up recipes is too much work. But the thing is, who memorizes recipes? I mean, if you really like a dish, you know, you should know how to make it without, and you make it a lot, you'll know how to make it without looking up a recipe. I mean, I have recipes, like if I make lasagna, for example, I don't need to pull up a recipe. It's lasagna. I've made it so many times, I know how to make it. It's like, put the lasagna in the water, let it boil. I mean, like, I'm talking about like the fucking grocery store lasagna that's mediocre. Not that like making your fucking dough yourself, okay? I'm talking American lasagna, good old American lasagna. Fucking layer it, put some beef, spice it to be some cheese, and then there's more layers, and then you put it in the oven and then it's done. You know? Hamburger helper. Amen, brother. That's the true American. So yeah, there are a good number of dishes that I can make without looking them up. Like, I can make a pretty fire curry stew. Don't need to look anything up. And I think that there is a good number of people that say, I can't cook. And what they mean by that is, I don't know any recipes. If you put me in the kitchen and ask me to cook right now and not use any resources, I wouldn't be able to do anything. I'd probably just put the potatoes in the oven and then have a baked potato. Right? After a while, do you still break out the measuring spoons or do you just eyeball the spices? If I'm baking a dessert, I always use the exact measurements, because if you don't, you will fuck it up. Other than that, I just eyeball it. Okay, that's what I saw my mom doing growing up, and her food was good. Unfortunately, with baking, things have to be very precise. There's some things that, you know, it's fine. You don't really need to be precise about baking certain things. Like if you're making some baked potatoes or, you know, whatever, it's fine. But if you're making certain dessert products, like you cannot eyeball a souffle. You cannot eyeball a macaron. Or macaroon, whichever one. Okay? there's no eyeballing that. That's like you have to make sure you measure everything, because if it's just a little bit too much flour or a little bit too much butter, it's not going to work. And even professional bakers all use proper measurements. But like professional chefs, they don't use measuring cups. They don't use fucking scales and shit. You look at the dish and then you taste. Otherwise, it would take forever for your food to come out when you go to a restaurant. I think cooking a planned meal is one thing. Some people don't have the ability to throw something together. I think a lot of people I know that they say that they can't cook just mean I can't throw something together. The seasoning will be off. I don't know what pairs, etc. Definitely gives a wrong impression, though. Yeah. So I'm going to agree with that. I think the majority of people that say they can't cook, they either fall into one of the two groups of I don't know any recipes by heart. I don't know how to, or I don't know how to put something together. The number of times where I've gone in my kitchen, I'm like, what do I make? Okay, we have some carrots, some potatoes, milk, cheese. I have some chicken. I guess I could do some like pan sauteed or pan cooked. I don't know what the fuck you would call it. Chicken, just throw it on there with some butter and some oil, salt, pepper, rosemary. And then maybe take like the carrots and the potatoes, clean them up, chop them up, put them on a sheet, throw some stuff on them, put them in the oven for like 15, and then maybe grate some cheese on it on top of the potatoes. So like some cheesy potatoes, some roasted carrots, and some like really tasty chicken. Okay, that sounds like it's good. Okay. So I've done it before where I've like looked inside of my fridge and my cabinet and my pantry, and I'm like, I really don't want to go outside. There's food. Let me come up with something. Right. And that does require some, I'm not even going to say that it's skill. I'm saying it requires, is a Breath of the Wild meal. Stop. And then there's the third option. I'm fucking lazy. Yes, that's the other one. There's a website called My Fridge Food where you can select what you have in your fridge and it will give you recipes. What? I'm writing that down. Whoa, that's so cool. I've never heard that before in my life. Why did I not think about the fact that that exists? And then I will say, here's the thing, right? The problem, however, is that you have to have like a base knowledge on certain things, and you build that knowledge over time. And when you are able to cook, you don't realize how many things you know. Like, I know that fat needs to render. I know that if you want to make some fire chicken or some beef or whatever, you want to put it like fat down, let it get nice and like crispy or whatever without burning it. I know the cook time of like how long I have to cook onions on a pan for them to soften. Like, I can just look and I'm like, okay, it's good. Oh, hi, Blues. So there's like certain things where do you know how to make a bechamel sauce? There's a lot of things that I think exist already that like I feel like I have this knowledge that exists. And I can make things work together. I know which spices work together. I know which spices don't work together. And I've practiced a lot of them for a long time, so I can do it, right? Like, I do not need to look up a falafel recipe. I can go get some garbanzo beans, let them soak overnight, take them out. Cilantro, parsley, onion, chopped finely. Well, I honestly throw it in the food processor. An egg not everyone likes to use an egg. I like to use one for giving it structure. Garlic, tahini, salt, pepper, I think cumin as well, is it? I believe so. Cool. I know, and I can get an idea. Also, another thing is like usage of the tools, right? There's a lot of stuff that when you can cook, you don't really think about all the things that you can cook, which brings me to my next point, which is where I wanted to take this segment to this video, which is no. This one. Show of hands. How many people have seen this video? It's titled, What Games Are Like for Someone Who Doesn't Play Games. Which brings me to my sponsor, HelloFresh. No, HelloFresh has reached out to me like 300 times and I have to take them out. So, to fucking assassinate them. Sorry. I have to decline because they union bust. Ooh, there's people who haven't seen it. Yay! That would have been a really good HelloFresh segue, though. You're right. Maybe if Blue Apron reached out. Yeah, the problem is they just actively union bust like really bad. And I'm just... Factor is owned by HelloFresh. If I didn't know and I was blissfully unaware, it would be fine. But the thing is, aware, I am aware. So, yeah, because I think every single company is going to have bad working conditions. You know, every single company is going to treat their workers shit and is going to be stealing those wages. But once you're at the point where you're actively union busting and firing people that are trying to organize, maybe that's just a little too far, you know? Oh, you guys are trying to unionize? That's nice. Well, we're just going to fire you. But it's not because you were trying to unionize. It's because of some other reason. Yeah. No, we're just cutting costs and stuff for this quarter. What the fuck? Like, huh? Right to work state, by the way. So anyways, I expect every corporation to fuck over their employees, but there is a level of fucking over that is unacceptable, right? So anyways, on the topic of this video, I do think that like, I'm going to put out a random number, okay? This is a completely random number. Like, I feel like 70% of the people who say that they can't cook, they're either, what they mean is, I can only cook if I have a recipe. I don't know how to put things together that are just in my fridge and create something. Or I do not have any recipes memorized that I can make easily. Or I'm lazy. I don't have the desire or energy or willingness to sit in the kitchen for an hour and make food. I'm too lazy to do that. But there's a secret fourth group. And I did not know that this group existed. Okay, guys? I did not know that this group existed until I met people who belonged to this group. This group being people who genuinely can't cook because they've never done it ever. And I know what you're thinking. Just follow a recipe. That's what I thought too. I'm talking about adults, okay? And mom and dad do everything? No, not even. I'm also talking about people who they don't have the ability to cook. Not everyone has a kitchen, guys. Not everyone grew up with family members that valued cooking. There's a lot of people that grew up in households where their parents literally never cooked and just ordered pizza all the time. I know everyone's thinking about like rich people. Everybody knows rich people. Fuck those people. We're not talking about those people. I hope they die. I'm talking about people who their kitchen was like this big They had like a mini kitchen, like a half kitchen. It was like a sink and a counter that was about this big. Or people who live in food deserts. Or people who are so poor that they don't have the privilege of cooking. It's literally ramen every day. Okay? There's also people, I'm going to say one other group as well. There's also people who get shamed when they tried to cook. And this is like, honestly, like trauma, go fix it in therapy and stuff. I have a mini kitchen in my single room of an apartment. Yeah, they exist. I grew up in New York. Okay. I've seen those fucking apartments. I did fucking real estate for a little bit. Some of those apartments, they're like kitchen. And the kitchen is like the most insane thing you've ever seen. It's like a cabinet that can fit 3 spice bottles. A sink that maybe can fit like 2 cups. And it's like, of course, a kitchen. Yes, that's what that looks like. Why is this kitchen in the bathroom? Just, I don't understand. Okay. Sure. And I will say also, like, just remember, some people had like abusive parents. Okay. And part of having abusive parents, this doesn't apply to everyone. Okay. Part of having abusive parents is like getting treated badly all the time. Anytime you try to do anything. So if you as a kid, you're like, I want to cook, and you go and cook and you fuck it up and you burn your food and you get like punished for that as a kid, you're never going to do it again. Like after doing it enough times, you're going to stop trying. You're like, okay, well, I'm a fuck up. I'm a failure. I can't do it. That's what my parents have told me my whole life. Okay, well, I don't know how to cook then. And then they get into adulthood and they're like, I can't believe I thought that for years. And now I can't fucking cook. And I know what you're thinking. How can you not cook? That's what I thought too. I invited a friend who is what this person gave me this revelation. Okay. And I was like, no, it's easy. Like, we'll just cook a meal together. They didn't know how to hold a knife safely. They didn't know how to like chop things. They're like, how do am I supposed to hold it? Am I like, for example, when you hold a knife, we'll pull up a picture. You want to put some grip on the actual blade, like your thumb, like this. And it gives you a lot more control. And it becomes a lot easier. And I saw them holding the knife from like the end. And I was like, no. Whoa, no wonder you're struggling. Put closer to the blade, thumb on the blade. You'll have a lot more control. It's literally, I haven't cooked before. I don't know how to fucking do this. And it was that for everything. Related to cooking. And you guys are like, how is that possible? Why is this crazy? To which I will say, before you push your judgment out, because I am judging the people who are lazy. Okay? I am judging the people who are like too lazy to fucking cook something. Fuck you. Stop.
There's also people who physically aren't able to cook a lot of things. For example, I'm only able to cook things that take less than 30 minutes because I can only stand for short periods of time because of my chronic pain.
Another good point. 100. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that. Because, yeah, disabilities will prevent you from being able to cook. Yeah, Twitch app sucks. Okay, so let's watch this video. Because I think most people that are on Twitch probably play video games. Not everyone, but probably the majority of people. Probably like at least 90% of you guys have played some video games. So I want to watch this video with you guys because it's a really, really good video and it'll explain what I'm talking about perfectly.
Last year, the lady I live with, also known as my wife, asked if she could try out one of the games I've been playing. She described it as the one with the cute little ghost guy, and after scrolling through my entire library, I realized she was talking about Hollow Knight. Given the fact that her experience with video games at that point consisted of the occasional race in Mario Kart and a smattering of Crash Bandicoot levels from when she was a kid, I knew with fair confidence that her playing Hollow Knight would go terribly. So obviously I booted it up and set her into the world of Hallow Nest. As she played, every moment, regardless of how seemingly insignificant, had a strange sort of intensity to it. For example, in the tutorial there are a set of platforms that the player needs to jump across. The only penalty for falling is a little bit of time, and on my first playthrough I breezed past it and immediately forgot about it. For her, it was intense beyond belief. She wasn't sure what the penalty for falling would be, and she didn't have a full grasp on how to adjust her jump height and distance. Each successful jump felt like a triumph, and after landing, she'd look out at the next platform, searching for the nerve to jump again. Watching her work through this early section and seeing the different ways that she viewed the game got me thinking a lot about the language of video games, and just how much a person's level of video game literacy affects their experience with any given title. I can't really think of a time in my life where I wasn't interested in games, and because of that, there are certain aspects about them that are almost instinctual to me now. And that's because
I apologize for pausing the video because it's an amazing video. But I need you guys to just see this for 5 seconds. Hi, I drop $1 million for your number. I'm logged on. You're the weird one. Back to the video.
a lot of games use
If I read it, you guys have to read it too.
same ideas and vocabulary in order to get information across to players as quickly as possible. It's why the color red is almost always associated with health, why the A button or its equivalent is typically the command to jump, and why platformers more often than not have players moving from left to right. At this point, I've played enough games where after 5 minutes of trying a new one, I almost always know what to expect, no matter the kind of game. But that inherent understanding of how games work and what to expect from them doesn't exist for the lady I live with because she hasn't spent the time learning those things. And this made me wonder, how do people learn the basics of video games? So I decided to run an informal experiment where I'd have her play a handful of titles and see how she approached figuring each one of them out in the hopes of getting a better understanding of how people learn the language of video games.
This is also true of people who usually only play one genre of gaming, and then when they dip their toes in any other genre of gaming, they hate it and they go back to what they used to do.
In an effort to not influence how she approached any given title, I didn't give her any advice.
One more pause. I love video games. I've been playing video games since I was like 7. Okay? And I love every variety of video game. I'm not good at every variety of video game, all right? But I have a love for every type of video game. Maybe like some more than others. Okay? And I don't know about you guys, but I've Discord hopped before. So I'll get really into like Overwatch and then I'll make friends in that game and I start playing with those people. And when I ask them like, hey, do you guys want to play this other game? They're like, nah. It's like, what? No, I just play this game. Trying to make a League player that only plays League play any other game. If you try to get someone that only plays like a multiplayer game to play like Rock and Stone with you, it's not going to be fun for anyone involved. Okay? Great pick. This video reminds me of me watching my partner pick up video games over the start of the pandemic. It was so fun watching her play Hollow Knight, Alien Isolation, graduating to Pokemon and Zelda. She has her own emulator. Oh, that's so cute. Rock and Stone. So, I just wanted to discuss that really quickly. I came to understand this watching Caroline play GTA 5. She literally cannot figure out how to drive. It's hilarious. Yes. Even with, however, I will say, even if you haven't played a genre before, If you've played other genres, it's a little bit easier to start learning how to do a new one because you're used to pressing a lot of buttons on your keyboard and your mouse. So at least you have that going for you. It's just a matter of like learning the controls in this new genre. When you've played no games ever, there are so many tools at your disposal that you are missing. My analogy would be, imagine having a tool belt. Now me, okay, I got a lot of tools on my tool belt because I'm down to play a lot of different things. Okay, I'm down for some Stardew. Okay, you want to play Stardew? Yo, let's go. Okay, but only if we fucking min-max. I want to get the vegetable that has the most money. Okay, we got to save up enough so we can buy the strawberries for next year. Okay, if we can, I'd like to find the mushroom floor since it's free money. We just keep going up a floor. Perfect. We would be great. It would be great. Okay, here's all of the gifts for all of the people. I made a list. All right, great. You don't want to play that? Oh, okay. You want to play some League? Sure, let's play some League. I'm not going to go into depth on that one because I'm willing to play League ARAM. That's it. Okay. You want to play some Overwatch? Shit, man. Okay. Sure. Okay. What do you want me to play? You want me to support you? You want me to tank for you? Want me to DPS for you? Sure. I'm down. I'm down. Let's go. I am down to clown. Okay. Do not relapse on League. I refuse. I refuse. Okay. I refuse. Want to play some Baldur's Gate? Let's fucking play some Baldur's Gate, man. All right. So I feel like, do you want to play HOTS? Said no friend ever. Stop. I feel like I can feel comfortable jumping into any type of game because I feel like I have enough tools in my toolkit. I'm a completionist. I am 100. I've been a completionist. I found out that I was a completionist after I played Lost Odyssey. And that was a time sink and a half. So, I couldn't get into Path of Exile. I don't know why. It didn't hit for me personally, which is weird because I like that genre of gaming. I like action RPGs. Moon still plays HOTS with the homies off stream. That's so funny. It's a fun game. It's a really stupid fun game. Yeah, PoE didn't click for me. But that doesn't mean it'll never click for me, to be fair. Because I've had games that didn't click for me and then they clicked. Like, I hated HOTS when I first played it. Now I have fun playing HOTS. It's fun. Moving on. I feel like if someone wants to play an FPS game, I have the tools in my tool belt for that. If they want to play a fighting game, I have the tools in my tool belt for that. You know? You want to play a MOBA? Okay, like you get what I mean? You understand like what I'm trying to explain? When you are starting from scratch, you have nothing. None. Nothing. And you do not realize how many tools you have until you see someone that has none. Because it becomes so foundational and basic that it's just like, wait, what fighting games? Okay, so you remember when I said I'm not good at every game? I'm probably the worst at fighting games. They hold a special place in my heart.
All I know is I'm a tool and you have a belt.
Anyways, I love watching fighting games. I love watching fighting games. And I like button mashing. And I love the Mortal Kombat universe because I grew up on it. But I'm not good. That's probably the thing that I'm the worst at. I haven't had a lot of fighting game friends, so it's just not a skill that I honed. I can do it. I'm just gonna, like, I can play the game. I'm just not gonna be good. Like, I'm like maybe silver elo, okay? And that's being generous. That's being generous. I just haven't, I've maybe have like max 50 hours, maybe 100 in fighting games. Maybe. Whereas in like FPS games, easily over 10,000 hours. Easily. My first year in college worked on Mortal Kombat 2 to 4. Whoa, that's so cool. I grew up playing MK2. Moving on. Enough chatting about this. That's all. I'm just trying to give you guys an analogy of like a belt with tools, and those are just the basics to be able to start playing something. Nick Merckx blocked me on Twitter for calling him a transphobe. I still think he hasn't blocked me, but I assume that's because he hasn't seen who I am or anything like that. But moving on, let's continue. Let's go back to the video.
Or instructions. I just watched, silently judging. I had her play through the early sections of 9 games. Super Mario Bros., Shovel Knight, Celeste, Portal, Doom, Skyrim, The Last of Us, Uncharted 2, and so that I could really test the strength of our marriage, Dark Souls. I picked these titles because A, I felt there would be a solid sampling of 3 major types of games, those being 2D platformers, 3D platformers, and first-person shooters/adventures, while also offering a diverse spread of genres and gameplay mechanics, and B, I like them. So this is how it went. Just kidding, we're so...
For anyone who didn't see the title card, it said, an informal...
So this is how it went.
An informal experiment, or why my wife left
Just
me.
kidding, we're so good. With each game, I noticed that there were a vast amount of seemingly basic functions and mechanics that she either didn't fully grasp or know existed. This first came up with Mario 1-1. She figured out the jump easily enough, but never realized she had the ability to dash, making her time with the level painfully hard to watch. There are no in-game instructions on how to dash or do anything else really, so players will only learn about it if they read the instruction manual, figure it out through experimentation, or have another person tell them how it works.
Or watch
As
someone
she
else.
didn't even know it was something she could do, she never figured it out. For me, it has become second nature to try to sprint in games, whether or not I know it's an option. I just assume it will be and guess the command will probably be the B button or its equivalent. But I only make that assumption because of years of being conditioned to make it. Figuring out the control.
It's like if you play a video game, you're just instinctively, and you're a keyboard player, because console gamers are cringe and they should remove themselves from society. Just gonna say it. When you're using a keyboard and you're playing a game, WASD. Run is shift, jump is space. Unless you're playing like a MOBA or some other game that's like more point and click. I'm kidding, guys. I was just too poor to afford console games growing up, so I became a PC gamer. That's the real reason, okay? So don't poor shame me, or I'll cancel you for being mean to me. When you're being mean to me, just know this is what I look like, and then it's just wormy. Haha, brokey. Hey, fuck you, okay? We on our come up, bro. I got a 4090 now. That's right. Yeah. It's a business expense. Smile. Frog Girl, thank you for the 15 months. Thank you. Okay, moving on. I was always too poor to afford a PC. I bought, when I was really, really poor, I bought this like really shitty HP desktop from, it was my first desktop ever. I'll never forget it. And I brought this really shitty HP desktop from Office Depot or like Best Buy or like Staples or something. I don't even remember where. And I realized it was shit, right? And I did some research on the internet and I decided to buy a graphics card. I bought I think a Radeon graphics card. I don't remember. And this is baby's first computer build. I rip open the case. And those cases are not, the computer I got, it's not meant for you to go in there and do shit. And I removed the other graphics card and I put in the new one. And like the case won't close because the wires are so big. And I have to like fold the wires like a million times and fucking squeeze it on. And I felt so girl boss. I got it on. It got on. I Frankensteined it, okay? All right. And I felt so girl boss. And then after that, I decided I wanted all the rest of my parts to be good as well. She had her monitor plugged into her motherboard graphics. Oh, no, don't say that. I bought like the rest of the parts. I bought a case, an RGB case. I bought some fans, CPU, motherboard. I felt so girl boss. I put it together. I was so proud of myself. I was so proud. So yeah, I literally picked the cheapest option available to me. The cheapest like computer that wasn't terrible. And then a nice graphics card. And I was like, this'll do it. And it did. It did. It gave me like 50 ping. So we on the come up. Okay, back to the video.
Controls for all of the games, whether they were explicitly explained or implicitly taught through level design, was a challenge for her. Part of this stems from her not being all that comfortable with a controller. Anytime a game asked for her to press a certain button, she'd look down at the controller and search for it. One of the most memorable instances of this came up while playing The Last of Us. Early on, there's a prompt on the screen to press L3, which she couldn't find on the controller as there is no button labeled L3. She noticed it was shaped like a circle, so she guessed it might be one of the joysticks. However, she didn't know that it meant to press down on it, so she just sort of moved back and forth until eventually figuring it out. I've certainly played games that do a better job of illustrating how L3 and R3 work, but it is kind of weird that there's pretty much a hidden button on all controllers that new players will have no reason to know exists. Figuring out a game's controls sounds easy, but she essentially not only had to memorize which buttons did what, but also which buttons were where, adding another layer of things to keep track of.
Yeah, I meant FPS, not ping, my bad. But also ping because I could finally wire the internet to my computer. When I had a laptop, my family members were like, why do you need to wire it? It works fine. So both. I forgot to add that information, but anyways.
Making the process a little bit more overwhelming. She typically fared better with games that didn't give too much information to remember. With Dark Souls, after reading 15 or so messages explaining the controls, she said she felt like she was getting too much information too quickly. A lot of the things she learned, most notably the lock-on feature, she forgot about by the time they would actually be useful. On the other side of things, with Shovel Knight, she struggled to get through a few of the early sections because she didn't understand the full scope of her abilities or how to use them, but once she did start to figure things out through experimentation, she ended up remembering the core mechanics better because she witnessed firsthand how useful they could be. So for her at least, giving a memorable use of a mechanic made it stick in her mind a lot clearer. Most of the games I had her play were with a controller, but I did want her to have some experience with mouse and keyboard, so I had her try a few games with a first-person perspective. I thought Portal would be the best place to start as it doesn't call for quick reflexes and it gives players time to figure things out. Using the keyboard actually proves to be easier for her than the controller as she uses a keyboard every day and knows where everything is. However, if you've been paying attention to the footage, you've probably noticed that she isn't looking around at all. And that's because she didn't realize she was supposed to use the mouse.
Oh.
In fairness, the instructions at the start explain how to move and how to pick things up, but they do assume that players will just know to use the mouse to look around. Given that she doesn't spend her free time watching me play games on my computer, why would she? I know that a lot of these little issues she ran into in regards to controls and mechanics all seem easy to overcome, and in a lot of ways they are, but they do still act as small barriers to entry for new players. Even when games have detailed explanations for things, it can sometimes be information overload, and it isn't uncommon for people to skip over explanations accidentally or on purpose because they don't feel like.
This was my, I had an experience like this with one of my siblings, where she wanted to play Overwatch and she boots Overwatch up and I like give her my setup and everything. And she would choose to move or shoot, but not both at the same time. So she would like run to a location. I gave her soldier because I was like, soldier's easy. She would run, stand in the middle of the map, completely open, and then move her hand and be like, and then she would die. And she's like, Valorant is, it's so hard. Are you kidding me? Because you still have to move around on Valorant, you know? But anywho, yeah. Knowing that you have to use both of your hands, so funny. So funny.
Like reading a bunch of stuff when they just want to beat the shit out of something. A lot of titles seem to assume that players will have at least some familiarity with controls, so some of the more simple explanations are kind of just left out. And I think the way most people end up learning these basic things that they won't figure out without searching on their own is through other people. For example, back to Mario. I don't remember how I learned to sprint in the game, but as I know I would not have read the instruction manual, there's a pretty decent chance that my brother told me how to do it, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of his friends had told him, and so on and so on. Also, the only reason I understand half the things I do in Dark Souls is because I've scoured wikis and message boards on how to get good. Video games are best when they are a communal experience, and a big part of that stems from the sharing of knowledge. Obviously, someone being a backseat gamer can get annoying if they explain how to do everything, but getting assistance when it's needed most can make a game far more enjoyable. It bridges the gap between the games expect players to already know and what they actually do know. Most of the frustration that the lady I live with had while playing boiled down to not being able to figure things out that she didn't know existed, which is
my friend doesn't know a lot about D&D, and she started playing Baldur's Gate. She loves it. But she said that she is so grateful that her roommate loves D&D because there were so many things she didn't understand, and she could just be like, can you explain this? And having that, like having a person that you can use as an easy to access resource is just great. I'm terrible at gaming, but I want to get into it. I'm friends with a bunch of gamers, and I'm always so embarrassed when we hang out and I'm like non-functional at the simplest game. So I usually stop and say I'm going to watch so I can learn more. I mean, yeah, I get it. Okay. Cause I'm the same way. The problem is that I also am very competitive. I'm an incredibly competitive gamer. Well, actually just like a very competitive person. It's my worst quality, actually. I love being sweaty. It's my favorite. It's like, let's test the limits. But I'm also a sore loser. Not that I cope about it, but I get so sad and I want to cry. And I have cried on many occasions. Okay. To be fair, Moon was such an arrogant bitch while playing Baldur's Gate 3. We all knew he wasn't going to keep playing it. And so when I was bad at video games, I was so embarrassed about it because it was not giving me the itch, the competitive itch. And so I would sit down and practice on my own time until I felt like I was good enough to play with other people. And that's the best advice I would give. Just sit by yourself and play those games, especially if you're playing a game that is multiplayer, a PvP game. If you're playing a PvP game with your friends, the MMR is going to be too high for you. So your experience is not going to be as fun as it should be. So you should play by yourself a little bit. You know what I mean? That's just practice. How do you get good at anything? Yeah, of course.
Something that would have been solved had I not just been a silent observer. Given that I was, though, she found herself continuing to have problems. And one of those is summed up best by her most frequently asked question:
where the fuck am I going?
When it came to the 2D platformers, navigating wasn't especially difficult for her. Because the options were limited, it was pretty easy for her to figure out that she needed to go right and sometimes up. Celeste and Shovel Knight do have a few optional rooms players can go in, but for the most part, whenever she entered one, she could tell it wasn't the path she wanted to take. Although Shovel Knight does have a side room in the tutorial that heads to the right and seems like the main path despite not being it, and there was a fair amount of disappointment as she realized she did all that work for nothing.
Are you fucking kidding me?
However, for all the 3D games, navigating proved far more difficult. She spent a lot of time wrestling with the camera in third-person games, and she wasn't all that great at moving and looking around at the same time in first-person ones. Due to her not rotating the camera around a ton, she didn't always get a great sense of her surroundings, so she struggled with figuring out where she was and where she was going. Like in Skyrim, she missed the jump from the tower to the house during the tutorial, and it took a while for her to realize that she had fallen back to the spot where she started. I'll also say the
growth of being a gamer is you start off taking the right path, and then once you play enough, you see that you're on the right path and you go the other way to see what's there. Once you feel comfortable, it's like, oh, I'm so curious. Where does this room go? And when you are like, I know for me, because I'm very completionist, if I feel like the path I'm going on is the correct path, I'm like, no, I missed stuff. Let's go back.
Because she wasn't good at focusing her camera, she didn't realize she was supposed to be following Hadvar, so she was sort of just strolling along, trying to get out of the city in her own way. Once she did follow him and got into a building, she was more interested in picking up everything she saw instead of moving forward, which actually is fair in how most people play Skyrim. Either way, she wasn't fully sure where to go. Interestingly, after we finished all the games, I brought up the footage of Skyrim and showed her the compass at the top of the screen, and she said that she hadn't noticed it while playing, as she was mostly just focused on what was directly in front of her. The same thing happened with Doom's compass and even the health bars of enemies and bosses directly in front of her. The same thing happened with Doom's.
Where's the compass? Is it just the marker here? This one? It's more of a waypoint than like a compass, no? It's also very faint.
Compass and even the health bars of enemies and bosses in Dark Souls. She typically noticed waypoints on the screen when they showed up, but she didn't know what they were for, so she often ignored them. Players are hit with a lot of information when they play games, and for ones who aren't all that comfortable with the basics, a lot of that information's pushed to the side, acting as another barrier for entry. Another thing that confused her was when progression in a level wasn't entirely linear. Like with Dark Souls, she got confused when the level looped back around on itself, and she made the assumption that she had messed up and gone the wrong way. Most of the games she had played before Dark Souls had typical progression, so finding herself back near where she started felt odd. Even the 3D games that seemed like they might be more straightforward had a few things that ended up being confusing for her. For example, in Uncharted 2, what a player can climb is indicated by being colored yellow, but that wasn't obvious to her, so she constantly tried to climb things that just looked like they could be climbed. And then she questioned why she had to take the longer, more roundabout path when there were perfectly good handholds right above her. A similar issue with signaling happened with The Last of Us as well. There's a part where—
well, to be honest, if you're trying to show someone that, or like trying to explain that concept to them, you should probably have them play like, what is it, Mirror's Edge? That's pretty good for teaching that concept. Just because it's like the entirety of the game, basically. Like, there's only 2 colors in the game at any given time, usually. Sometimes there's more colors. But almost always it's very obvious what you're allowed to climb and what you're not allowed to climb. Pretty good for, it's also a very pretty game, but it's pretty good for teaching this lesson in my personal opinion.
the player has to run through a city to escape, and a gas station explodes, causing street lamps and other things to block the road ahead. My wife noticed a little gap on the sidewalk that was untouched by fire, so she kept trying to run through that to get out. But every time she did, the infected came and killed her. This made her think that the issue wasn't with it being the wrong way to go, but rather with her not being fast enough, so she kept trying that same path over and over before finally finding the right way. With game design, there's often a battle between having a level look realistic and making it easy to navigate. In this example, Naughty Dog tried to make the city feel more natural by not having every path be physically blocked off. And while more experienced players will most likely see the explosion and assume they should go a different way, the game falls short on helping players who don't understand what they're supposed to do. By having the signal be the explosion, but the consequence being an attack by the infected, she learned the wrong lesson. And this sort of thing ended up happening to her a fair amount throughout the process, even with things that had nothing to do with navigation. Sometimes she just interpreted the information the game was given her in the wrong way, and she found herself
learning the wrong lessons.
The idea that some games teach players how to play simply through gameplay and level design is a pretty common talking point in the video game community. I'm a firm believer that a lot of games do this, and watching her play reaffirmed that thought. For example, in Doom, her initial instinct was to stay as far away from enemies as possible, because she didn't feel all that comfortable with the controls of a first-person shooter. However, once she came across enemies who threw fireballs at her from a distance that did way more damage than anything she could do from that same range, she started to realize that her best bet was to get close to enemies and either beat the crap out of them or use the shotgun. Ultimately, Doom is meant to be played this way. The glory kill system and the handful of weapons that are powerful at close range are included to push a fast-paced, action-packed.
Doom is one of the few games that I actually haven't played. Not because I don't like it or because I don't want to. I actually really do, but because nowadays I really only play multiplayer games. It's pretty rare that I play a single player game. Only because the time feels so, and this is stupid, to be very clear. This is not logical or rational or whatever. The time feels wasted if I'm not spending it with friends. You know? Which is not good thinking, by the way. That's not like... I played so many single player games. I put hundreds of hours into Dragon Age. Hundreds of hours into Mass Effect. We get it. You have friends. So, yeah. And it's not like, I can't do that anymore. I have friends. It's like when I'm playing by myself, I'm like, I'm having fun, but this would be more fun if I was playing with a friend. I would rather play Doom, but like the game-wise, Doom will be funner than playing Heroes of the Storm for the 30th time, but playing Heroes of the Storm with friends is funner than playing Doom by myself, you know? And that's the thing that I struggle with the most. It's actually one of the only reasons that I picked up RimWorld, and it's because you can have a multiplayer mod that's pretty seamless. But Coriander, thank you for the 6 months.
Fighting style. And having one of the first rooms be extremely difficult to beat without playing this way sets the expectation for the rest of the game. It took her a fair bit of banging her head against the wall to get past this room. But once she did, she was better at the core mechanics of the game than when she started. With that said, what I found even more interesting than when she learned the right lessons of how to play a game through gameplay was when she learned the wrong ones. The first instance of this that I noticed happened while playing Mario 1-1. At the beginning of the level, there's a question mark box with a mushroom in it. She had some familiarity with the Mario franchise, so she knew that mushrooms were good to get. However, after hitting the box, she jumped into a different block, causing the mushroom to change directions and go off the left side of the screen, out of reach. She didn't register that she had caused the mushroom to change directions, leading her to the assumption that mushrooms would always end up going to the left. When she got to another block that she suspected held the mushroom, she hit it and immediately moved to the left to grab it before it went off screen, and, well... This was a far less intrusive lesson to get wrong than the ones that came up while she played Celeste and Shovel Knight. The tutorial of Celeste is a pretty simple stage that ends with the player learning how to dash, which is arguably the most important and useful mechanic in the game. The lady I live with interpreted the prompt to mean that the only way to dash was by doing it at an upward angle, pretty much crippling her ability to do screens effectively until after 15 minutes or so when she accidentally dashed horizontally and realized her moveset was wider than she had thought. With Shovel Knight, early on she died from hitting this bubble. A bag of gold popped out and hovered near it. On her next time through, she jumped on the bubble and the bag at the same time and assumed that both things had damaged her, causing her to think that the bags of gold were an enemy of some sort. So when she came across them after that, she would either try to attack them or actively avoid them. As she wasn't paying terribly close attention to the HUD, she never realized what they actually did. I'm not saying that these things are the faults of the game developers, but it is interesting how easily information on screen can be misunderstood. These sort of things can happen to players of all skill levels, but given her lack of experience, she didn't have much else to go on to challenge the lessons she thought she had learned. I found the disconnect between how she thought games worked and how they actually worked to be pretty intriguing. And as I focused more on those differences, I started to notice a sort of trend with every title she played. That being...
thinking games would be cooler.
When most people talk about what any video game is like, there's often a greater focus on the general actions players can do rather than the limitations that make it possible for the game to function. For example, Mass Effect could be described as a role-playing game where, among other things, players get the opportunity to talk to and form relationships with various characters across the universe. People who play a lot of games will most likely go in understanding that this actually means players will be able to form relationships with a predetermined cast of characters by choosing responses from a set of limited dialogue options. As it turns out, this formula makes for a really great series, but there is a gap between what a game sounds like and what it actually looks like. And I think for people who don't end up playing a lot of games but have to suffer through listening to their friends or partners talk about them, they get a warped perception about what players can do in a title because they don't understand or know the systems that games use in order to give these grand sounding experiences. Where I know to apply a sort of video game logic to any title I play, the lady I live with was always trying to apply real world logic. Like in the Doom tutorial, there's a gore nest that the player needs to destroy. A waypoint marker shows up on it, which when I first played, I knew meant I needed to go up to it and most likely hit a button prompt. When my wife played, she didn't know what the marker meant, so her initial instinct wasn't to walk right up to it. Instead, she noticed while messing around that the red barrels exploded, so she had the idea to try to push one of the barrels towards the nest to blow it up. And this is objectively more interesting than just pressing a button to destroy it, but of course it didn't work. Throughout the various games, a pretty common question she asked was, why can't I do it this way? And my response was,
that shit is so real. Playing games with non-gamers, the number one question you get is, why can't I do this?
because. The deeper answer is that limitations exist in games because there are only so many potential inputs a title can have, meaning there are a finite number of ways a player can interact with things. If developers
Also, more importantly, every type of way that you interact with something has to be coded in. You don't take this universe and then remove stuff. You start from nothing and build one. And game development is time consuming as fuck. I mean, Baldur's Gate, it took almost like, what, a fucking decade or some shit? Something like that. And that is a game where it really does feel like you can do almost anything. Why can't I do this? Because it's not Baldur's Gate 3. Is the lady he lives with the same person as his wife? Yes. He just calls her that because it's a joke. She would love RimWorld. Ooh, I don't know. RimWorld has a kind of a learning curve to it. Like a learning curve to learning how to enjoy the game, you know?
tried to program in every possible way a player might think about interacting with something, games would just never come out. Yeah. I'm used to these limitations. I actually appreciate them in a lot of instances. However, for her, she got frustrated when the ideas she came up with didn't work. Like while scaling the train in Uncharted 2, she reached a point where she wanted to swing from a pipe and through a window. So when she realized she had to take the predetermined path that didn't take much more than pressing left, she felt disappointed because, yeah, her idea was cooler. In Skyrim, as Alduin began attacking the city, she found a spot in a house and figured she'd just wait it out until he left. But due to the scripted nature of this part of the game, that plan didn't work, forcing her to follow the path the game wanted her to follow. In turn, this took away all the tension of this section because she knew she could take as long as she wanted and nothing bad would happen. Hiding in a house isn't that fun of a way to play a game, but her not being able to made it feel like she lost some agency. Her expectations for what she thought she could do in each game were always different than the reality, and I think as she realized that games were more simple than she had first assumed, some of the intrigue about them faded.
The end of it. I'll say something else as well. Rimworld today, Queen? Rimming today? Just wondering, any rimming today? Playing any Rimworld today, Queen? Marianne, I love you. There was something else I was going to say. No. We need more non-gamers in game dev. Honestly, I fucking agree with you because you know what I will never get over? I will never get over how dog shit the League of Legends tutorial is. It teaches you nothing about the game. And it's the reason friends had suggested it to me for years, since the game basically came out. Since I had a friend in high school that recommended it to me. So it has been recommended to me for a decade. And every couple years, I would pick it up again. And every couple of years, I would be disappointed by the tutorial. And so on and so on and so forth. I did the tutorial again recently, like last year. It's still not good. It's still not good. Because you play the tutorial and you feel like, oh, okay, I've never played MOBAs before. Is this right? And then you play the game and it's like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing. This is nothing like what I was taught. In fact, I had to learn how to play Heroes of the Storm first, and then I understood how to play League of Legends. Because Heroes of the Storm actually does have a pretty decent tutorial. Not a great one, but it has a decent one. And I literally could not learn League until I learned Heroes of the Storm. Because Heroes of the Storm, there's no items. LOL users, you know?
You're supposed to learn League of Legends from all chat, but Riot ruined it. Verbal abuse is the key to LOL skills.
You know, okay, don't tell anyone, guys. Okay, don't tell anyone. I played League the other day. Not the other day. It's like last year. I played it 6 months ago. I don't like the game. When I tell you guys I am a social gamer, I'm serious. I started as a person that genuinely loves games, and nowadays I love gaming with other people. It feels like it's such a fun experience. And the only reason I picked it up, and the only reason I ever have been suggested for like to pick it up, has been because friends have suggested it to me. Okay? And friends peer pressured me into finally playing it. And why did I say that? Oh, I remember. I played it. I dropped it again, and then I pick it up and drop it again, pick it up, drop it again. I pick it up again, and I guess they changed the report system and the auto flag system. And I thought League of Legends was still the same toxic shithole that it's always been. So I told someone to kill themselves. And then I found out that you're not allowed to do that, and I was chat restricted for the rest of the game. So, good to know. Good to know. You're not allowed to do that. They were making fun of me. They were making fun of me. You don't get to make fun of me and then I can't be toxic back. So now I make creative insults, okay? I do creative insults. I'm like, I hope, your fucking face falls off when you're asleep. I hope your wife cheats on you and leaves you for someone that you wish you could be. Like stuff like that now, since KYS is not acceptable anymore. That is just part of the problem. Listen, okay, when I came into the League community, it was already like that. Okay? It was already like that. I simply adopted the darkness. Okay? All right. I'm actually I'm a behaved gamer when unless lest there are toxic people. Lest. Okay. That's more fun than I thought it would be, making awful creative comments. Yeah. I don't do any of the KYS stuff when I'm on stream because it's like it's a different environment and you shouldn't say it and it's bad and etc. But if other people are going to say it to me in a game, I'm going to say it back. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and stand for this. Are you kidding me? Okay? Also, I hate to be this person. It's funny. It's funny when people say it to me. It's funny like when it's joking between people. I don't know. I don't know, man. This is my most problematic take. Okay? That's my most problematic take. Context matters? I mean, I would like to think so. Okay. Let's finish the video.
For the lady I live with, the thing she hated more than anything else about this experiment was having to replay sections of a level over and over again after dying. Had I not told her to keep trying on a handful of the games, she would have stopped far sooner because it was understandably frustrating. With that said, when she did stick with games that frustrated her and ended up beating the parts that she struggled with, she found it exhilarating. I think this trade-off of dealing with frustration so that the excitement of beating something is all that much sweeter is one that people who play a lot of games not only understand but look for. However, trying to pitch that
I feel like most people chase that shit. I chase that high. I grew up in the shit-talking era of online gaming with Halo and COD. See, me too, okay? I grew up... Me too, man, okay? I can't help myself, okay? I can, and I do, and I behave. I behave on stream. I behave in public. Once I'm in a game and someone else is being toxic to me, it's like... I also like it. I don't like when people are being bigoted, but I like it, okay? I will never forget the first time someone insulted me in Overwatch, but they didn't insult my gender. I was on I was on cloud 9. I was like, finally, somebody gets it, dude. Fucking can't we just shit talk each other without it being like racially charged or gender charged or some shit, you know? He's like, you fucking suck. Why the fuck are you playing a character you can't fucking play? Fucking uninstall the game. You're just gonna throw every game. And I'm like, yes, 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 yes. So excited. Banter, yeah. Overwatch voice chat, yeah. Yeah. So. You are not right, though? Right on what? Anyways. Back to the video, though. I will say, what did he just talk about? Oh, yeah. I feel like that's how people get into gaming. That's not a good response to getting flamed. No, if I'm doing shit, flame me. If I am not good, flame me. I like a good competitive environment. All right. I understand other people don't. And when I play with other people who don't like a competitive environment, I turn that part of my brain off. And then I get also really high to the point where the game is really difficult, which is kind of cheating a little bit, but I like doing it. Because then it's like, I'm so high that existing is painful. So I'm significantly worse at the game. And I'm having more fun. Like, I'm like, everything is funny. Whereas my natural state of being is like, I love competing. And so when I see people playing poorly, sometimes I get a little triggered. I'm like, no, just don't do this. So I try to tone myself down a little bit, you know? I tone myself down and I'm like, I just get really high and I'm like, guys, I'm really high. Sorry if I'm not performing, you know what I mean? But if I could, most games, I love competitiveness. It's so much fun. When they introduced turbo mode and played up, But I know not everyone is like that. I get it. I know not everyone's like that. I try my best to not be toxic or like be competitive with people who they enjoy games very casually and they don't really take any pleasure from that part of games. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I don't want to make your gaming experience worse, right? I don't want to do that. You want to have fun doing a game like this? Okay, let's play the game like this. But if I could pick, but my point is like, it's about the exhilaration, right? I never said you need to have toxicity in your competition. Those are two separate points. I love being competitive, and some people who are very competitive also like to trash talk. And I enjoy shit talking. I like when people shit talk me. I like shit talking other people. I think it's fun. But I know it's not for everyone, so I don't do it with everyone. What I will say is, yeah, that's why there's ranked and there's unranked play. Exactly. Fucking exact. I hate the people who get into Overwatch unranked and they start being toxic. It's like, it's unranked, you dipshit. If you're gonna try hard, go play ranked, you fucking loser. And then the opposite is also true. When I play ranked and people are like, it's just a game, I want to strangle those people. Not literally, but I want to strangle those people. I'm just so mad. I'm
4
like,
months DNM love.
it's just a game. Just go play the casual mode then. Stop dropping my elo because you don't give a shit. Stop. Okay. I'd smoke you in any video game, punk. There's a lot of games I would smoke your ass. Not every game. I would lose every fight in Valorant. Every single one. Maybe I'd kill you once. Obscure Leftist, thank you for the 4 months. Thank you. But I think it builds on this. When you lose over and over and over and over again, the win becomes that much sweeter. I remember playing Bayonetta. I don't remember what difficulty, but it was very hard for me at the time. And I went to sleep so mad because I tried to beat the same boss like, it must have been like 100 times. And I went to bed so mad. I was like, I woke up, first thing I did, I played Bayonetta, launched Bayonetta up, opened the save file, beat it first try. And I was like, I rode that high for the next week. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this game is so fucking good. This is so good. Opinions on my summer car? I don't know what that is. You would roast me and leave me in the dust in Baldur's Gate? Well, no, if I'm playing with friends, again, I want people to have fun when they're playing. And if you're someone who likes to shit talk and you're someone who likes to be very competitive, then yeah, we can play like that. But if you don't like to play like that, then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be an asshole. You know? How did you sleep when you were only one try away from beating it? I think I had school the next day. You ever played Celeste? I am so bad at platformers. I'm pretty sure Celeste is one of the few games that I dropped. I was like, this is too hard. I can't. I don't have enough brain cells for this. I can't. Maybe in a future, maybe future me can play it, you know? You didn't use the accessibility options? I don't remember. Unintentionally unintuitive games is pretty fun to watch people rage over. Is it called What is Baba or Who is Baba? That game's pretty fun. It's actually a very fun puzzle game. Like, it's a very fun head scratcher puzzle game. Baba is you. Oh, you guys are so based. Sometimes you go to bed defeated. Yeah. I don't want to play Get Over It. I can't. That's not personally my cup of tea. If I had to, I'd play it, but There's games I like more. Why are we being blessed with this long denim streams? Honestly, honestly, guys, sometimes when I stream Baldur's Gate Honor Mode, what do you think I'm doing, bitch? Hell yeah, I'm doing Baldur's Gate Honor Mode. You know, I'm in Act 2. I just haven't played it for like a month because I've been sick and busy for so long. But sometimes, I don't know, I'm like in a good mood and I have a lot of energy. And I have a lot of topics to talk about. And other times, it's like I get on stream and I'm like, fuck, I have nothing planned. It's like fucking dead news cycle. Trump didn't say anything stupid. Biden didn't say anything stupid. No Congress people died. No interesting YouTube content. It's like, fuck, what am I going to stream about? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Reality, thank you so much. I hope I do. But
Honor
thank you so
mode
much.
was so hype. Good luck with your run.
Duty Pop, thank you. Thank you for the 2 months. Duel me and wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the only other thing. That's the only other game type that I don't really play is MMOs. But that's because I'm far too addicted to MMOs. I cannot be trusted with an MMO. I'm going to end up spending hundreds of hours a week playing and all of my bank account. So I can't do it. On principle, I don't play them anymore. Choppy Toppy, thank you for the tier 1. Thank you. And people will be like, no, but this one's really fun. And I'm like, that's the problem. That's the problem. I know it's going to be fun. That's why I can't play it. Trust me, I know Final Fantasy's fun. I know it is. I've seen my friends play it. I can't play another fun MMO. I can't. You play any FPS games? Yeah. I was really into TF2. Thousands of hours in TF2. And then I jumped from TF2 to Overwatch. Thousands of hours into Overwatch. And then I jumped to Apex Legends. Thousands of hours in Apex Legends. And then I've played like single player shooter games here and there. And like I've dabbled in a couple other ones. I dabbled with the vampire one. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Vampire Masquerade or something. Fortnite. I've probably have a couple hundred hours on Fortnite. Big Blue Whale, thank you for the gift sub. Bulletstorm? I don't think so. Base TF2 enjoyer? I don't trust people who don't like TF2. You sus. You sus. CK3 stream when? I have. Let me see how many hours I have in CK3. Where is the... Have you played Lethal Company? I haven't had the time. Since Lethal Company came out, I literally have not had the time to play. I just haven't had any time to play it. Where's my... Oh, right. I didn't play Crusader Kings on Steam. I think I borrowed someone else's copy. Maybe like I had like... I beat it basically. I conquered everything. And I did all of the eugenics stuff that the game asks you to do to min-max. And then, you incest breed your kids so they have the pure bloodline or whatever the fuck. That game is just like, be a piece of shit simulator. CK3 is pretty fun, though. It's pretty fun. It was very aggravating because it was like the first, big Please let us see the conclusion. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. Let's finish the conclusion, and then the rest of us can sit here and fucking chat about video games like nerds.
She should spend her free time doing something that actively frustrates her so that the few moments where she succeeds feel glorious is a bit of a tough look. This little test has me questioning how I became interested in video games in the first place. I don't remember how they became such a big part of my life. I don't know how I got to the point where I could look at a compass at the top of a screen and know what to expect from every marker without looking them up. I don't know how I first learned about stamina bars and the various ways to make sure I don't run out of energy. I don't know how I became, I guess, fluent in the language of video games. I'm just glad that I learned the basics when I was young enough to not care about spending hours on one level. For a better understanding of how inexperienced players approach video games, I need to run a much wider and more complex study that tests in a more robust way than just sitting down to watch my wife play video games a few times. But I did find it interesting to compare how wildly different my approach to games is to hers. And while I definitely don't have enough definitive information to make any sort of legitimate conclusion about how inexperienced players approach games, I do want to say this. In a similar way to how it is harder to learn a language as an adult, it's harder to get into video games after a lifetime of not playing them. And from what I've seen, that seems to have less to do with interest and more to do with struggling to get over the barriers that exist for new players. Like, if you don't know how to read, why would you pick up a book? What I'm getting at is if someone you know who doesn't play games expresses interest in trying one, don't force them to be in an experiment where you give no guidance and mostly just watch them struggle with something that they never learned how to do. Teach them how to read it instead. So you want to pick that up, and now you have a very not annoying at all item. That if you hit, yep, that's it. Yep.
Fucking get it.
You can use that to like wake things up and to break stuff.
Ooh. Put that in the video. You should just take that snippet. Don't put that in the video.
So cute. Also, don't start with Hollow Knight. Don't start with Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is not a good game to start with. I will tell you that much, okay? Here's the video for anyone who is curious. To complete this segment, because this was a segment on something else. Okay, guys? And then we got lost in the sauce. Some might say. Start with Cuphead. Omega lol. So we already covered the two groups, or like the three groups. People who say they can't cook, that are just lazy. People who say that they can't cook, who, when they say that, what they mean is they cannot create a meal from scratch with random ingredients in their fridge. And the third group of people who can't cook, and when they say that, they mean I need a recipe in order to cook. I don't have I don't have a single like meal memorized, right? But there's one group that's been ignored here, and that's a fourth group of people who genuinely don't know how to cook. Things that are intuitive for people that have cooked even once are not intuitive for people who've never cooked. Like people who don't play video games. If you don't play video games, you don't know that the spacebar is going to be, I don't use controllers, so I'm just using mouse keyboard things. You don't know that spacebar is jump. You don't know that WASD is move. You don't know that shift is run. You don't automatically test those when you start, right? Or like right mouse button is usually, if you're playing an FPS game, it's usually a scope. Left mouse button is usually shooting. You know? We're not talking about rich Nepo kids. We don't talk about those people because those people are not people that I give a fuck about, and I hope that they die. I'm talking about people who are either physically disabled and deal with chronic illnesses, so they can't stand for long enough to ever cook. I'm talking about people who grew up in abusive households where they were punished anytime they made a mistake and wanted to try cooking, and then it turned them off of cooking for the rest of their life. I'm talking about people who didn't grow up with kitchens. I'm talking about people who grew up in food deserts, okay? I'm talking about a lot of different groups of people who I didn't know existed. Me too. I'm talking about, because I didn't know that these group of people, or that this group of people existed, and that there were so many people that genuinely just never had the opportunity to learn, and it just wasn't something that they picked. You know? When you put it that way, I get it. Yeah, and then like jumping off of the gaming video, people who've never played video games, they don't know automatically that you're supposed to move the mouse to look around. They don't even have the basic fundamental tools to even try. Oh yeah, and also I forgot, people who grew up poor, people who grew up very poor, or people who grew up very time poor, that they don't have the time to make, like, to ever even do anything besides cooking rice in a rice cooker. You know? I'm ADHD autistic. I get super massive panic attacks whenever I see a stove. I never learn and I'm super scared to fuck up. Yeah. I mean, it's like it can be a trauma. Like you can have trauma about that stuff. You know what I mean? That's not who she's talking about. Well, that's why we already addressed the groups that she's talking about. She's talking about people who are basically I'm not gonna repeat myself. My entire point is I didn't realize that there's so much muscle memory to cooking until I saw it firsthand with a friend of mine who can't cook. I was like, yeah, just chop the onion. And they were like, how do I chop it? I was like, just, finely chop it. And they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, how do I do that? I'm like, you chop it like this, and then you turn it around and you chop it like this after you split it in half. And they're like, oh. And they're chopping so slow because they're scared because it's the first time they've ever chopped an onion. They don't know how much force to put in. And like I said earlier, people who like my experiences with these people, like, here, hold the knife, holds it like completely in the wrong way. Like their hand is all the way at the end of the handle. So they don't have like a good grip when your thumb is supposed to be on the inside of the blade, like on the top of the blade, so that you have better control. Right? Because this is like good chopping motion and you have a lot of control. Like the blade becomes an extension of your hand, right? Right? Also, or they don't want to experiment because they'd be wasting food. Dude, I used to get that actually. If I fucked up food at home, I just really loved cooking naturally. Like I just had a natural desire to cook for whatever reason. Maybe I saw videos, maybe I watched cooking channels and that's what made me interested. I wanted to, but the one thing was my mom's stance was if you want to cook something, you have to buy it yourself. You buy the ingredients yourself. I'm not buying ingredients for you to go waste. I don't want to find out that you messed up a dish 3 times and now we don't have any flour. So if you want to cook, go to the store, buy what you want, come back and make it. And I'm like, okay. So I learned how to cook despite that. Okay? Because I just wanted to. So anyways. So anywho. I was never really good at sweets, but my solution, if it went wrong, was always to put it in the oven. Yeah. But there's so many things that I take for granted almost. Like, what is a pinch of salt? This is another thing with like, I thought I could just tell someone, yeah, tell my friend, hey, just follow the recipe. And they're like, I don't know what a pinch of salt is. And it's like, oh, just like a pinch. And they put the smallest pinch of salt, like 3 grains of salt. And I'm like, no, a little bit more. No, you can put more. You can put more. It's okay. It's very hard to oversalt things. Don't worry for what we're cooking right now. And I realized, oh, okay, let me try and help them. Like, okay, like I would say a pinch is maybe like a teaspoon, maybe a little bit less, maybe somewhere in between half a teaspoon and teaspoon. You know? It's 3 fingers and a thumb. And also people do pinches differently, right? Season until your ancestors tell you to stop. Yeah. And then like, or understanding how pans work. and like temperature and heat. So I didn't realize, but I had to explain that whatever the recipe says, what you're supposed to, on a stovetop, to be very clear. Oven, you want to follow the directions exactly, especially if you're baking something. But when it comes to stovetop, all stoves are a little bit different, and you get to learn what your stove is like, and you change the recipes around that. So maybe the recipe says medium to low, and you're like, my fucking stove sucks. I'm putting it on high. Or maybe your stove is really like powerful and you're like medium to high. No, that's going to burn my food. We're going a little bit less than that. You have to learn I feel like every stove is a little bit different, right? But someone who's never followed a recipe before doesn't think that that's something that's important. No one's ever told them every oven is different. Change the temperature based on what you think is right for the dish. And there are so many little things like that I never thought about, ever, even once. I never even considered, like, oh, I kind of just already know this. Or how long it takes to heat up oil. Once the oil is popping, you went way too far. If you put something in there and it doesn't sizzle at all, it needs more time. Or like how to test if the oil's hot. I just know that, right? Because I've done it so many times. Also, another one, for example, is I notice this a lot with people who cook versus people who don't cook. People who cook a lot, when they get tiny little burns on their fingers, they're like, oh man. And they run it under cold water and then they keep going. When people who don't cook get burned, they're like, oh my God, I got a burn. It's like the tiniest burn you've ever seen. It's like, it's not even a 1st-degree burn. It's like, it's okay. And they're like, I don't know. And it's like, it's okay. Sweetie, it's okay. I've burned all the nerve endings off my fingers. That's part of the process. Ideally, you keep burning your fingers so many times that it stops hurting as much. Laughs and grill cook. I feel like some people are talking about different categories of people in chat. I feel like people think I'm sympathizing with lazy people, and that's not what I'm doing. There are lazy people who just don't feel like doing it, and then there's people who literally have no fucking idea how to do it. And they just are like, this is too hard. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to eat frozen meals. Is it fair to not cook because you don't like it, or should everyone try to appreciate it as a necessary life skill? Oh, I go back and forth on this one a little bit. Because on the one hand, I think it's fair to trade tasks that you don't want to do. Like if you like in the hypothetical conversation of like a live-in partner, if you really don't like cooking, you can be like, okay, what do I have to do to never have to cook? I'm down to do whatever. Do you want to do the dishes forever? I'll do it. Do you want to do dishes and laundry forever? I'll do it. What is a fair exchange? Because I just don't want to. I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I understand and I value your labor. So I don't want you to do it for free. But what can I do that feels fair? I think that's fine. In fact, I think that's good. I think you have communication and you know, you have like a communication with people and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's fine. I have, in my experience and in my opinion, I would love to do that. I would love to cook every single meal if I never had to do dishes. Like, if I never had to do dishes ever. Oh, fuck yeah, I would cook every meal. Are you kidding me? Hell yeah. So I think, you just talk, I think communication is fine. I do think everyone should know like 3 dishes. I think everyone should know like a good breakfast dish, a good like lunch dish, and a good dinner dish. I think it's good. I think it's just in general, life skills wise, it's good to have a couple recipes that are fallbacks. At the very least, because your partner could get sick, for example, or your roommate could get sick. Let's say it's an arrangement with your roommate. They could get sick. They could be away for a while. You want to be able to cook if you have to, right? You have a deal. I love doing the dishes. It's so relaxing. Dude, fuck yes, man. What I think is unacceptable is people who are willing to put in 0 effort and they're like, I just can't cook. You have to do the cooking because I don't know how to. And it's like, you have hands, don't you? You don't deal with chronic pains. You don't have any disabilities. Google's right there, bitch. Either you do something else or you'll starve. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's not good enough. Versus, and I've known people like this, kids who grew up in households where their parents worked full time, sometimes 2 jobs, or their parent worked 2 jobs. And they had to also, in addition to going to school, had to pick up a part-time job to help pay for utilities, to help pay for bills. And if you are time poor, you literally don't have the time. Cooking can be very time draining. Now, there are things that are easy to cook, like making rice, making beans. There's things, but nobody wants to fucking eat rice and beans all day, every day. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to do that. Everything I eat comes out of the Instant Pot. Hey, the Instant Pot's base. I have one. I use it for everything, man. I love my Instant Pot. Are you kidding me? There are very few things I don't use the Instant Pot for. Yeah, and if you are genuinely, I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with this either. I don't want to cook. What's wrong with that? I never said there's anything wrong with not wanting to cook. That's fine. There are certain tasks that are required for being an adult that I don't want to fucking do. And if I can find a workaround, I'm not going to do them. Right? I'm single. I don't want to cook. No having to cook and not having to do dishes. It costs me a little bit more money, but it's a trade-off I'm okay with. After work, there's tons of other stuff that I have to do that I would rather be doing. That's fine. No, that's fine. I think I'm only talking about like fair exchanges of labor, in a household. And I guess going to another category a little bit, like weaponized incompetence. That shit is just no. Because again, I feel like I'm a pretty understanding person. I feel like that's where I draw the line. Mm-mm. Because I understand if you have chronic pain, I understand why cooking doesn't sound appealing to you. Because what if you start cooking for like 20 minutes and then you start experiencing pain and now you're halfway through a dish? One of my friends gets chronic jaw pain, like piercing jaw pain. And if anyone's had jaw pain before, I know I have. That shit sucks. You have to like lay down when you're getting piercing jaw pain. TMG gang, rise up. Yeah. Thankfully, I feel very blessed, very lucky that I don't deal with any chronic pain. And I do not know how people with chronic pain like exist. Like those people are fucking powerful. Those people are fucking powerful. So I understand if like it happened that like multiple times you go into the kitchen, you start a meal, you get chronic pain, and now you can't even fucking stop. Or sorry, now you can't even finish. And it's happened to you so many times, it's like, I don't want to cook anymore. I don't want to. I'm tired of buying food that I have to throw out. Despite that, someone can deal with chronic pain and you can still have a fair exchange of tasks. I like to call these computer tasks. Things that you need a computer to do. Keeping up on your bills, keeping up on, rent payments, ordering stuff that you need, like groceries or what is it called? Toilet paper, fucking shampoo, soap, all that other shit. Sending out emails, fucking returning stuff. There's a lot of like annoying kind of almost secretary shit that will eat up hours of your day. So, if, for example, if you live with someone or you're a partner with someone that has chronic pain, there's still stuff that they can do. Right? It just doesn't have to be physical. There's still lots of stuff that always needs to get done. And someone has to do them.
As a bachelor, these things sound mysterious. Tell me more.
So it doesn't mean like, oh, I have chronic pain, I'm not going to do anything ever. But you can be understanding and also say, hey, I'm really exhausted. I just did all this work. Could you do this like 3 hours or like 2 hours of computer labor that I just don't have the energy to do? I have to fucking send an email to my therapist because I have to reschedule, and then I have to fucking fill out a form for my school, and then can I ask you to do this for me? Yeah, that's cool. I feel like that's whatever works, whatever makes you happy and makes the other person happy too. Because if you're not happy, there are things you can do to make each person happy, right? Mental labor and planning is still very much so labor. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. So I just wanted to shine a light on one very small group of people that exists. People who genuinely do not know how to cook. And that was something that I didn't realize. I'm not saying that those people, they literally don't know how to cook. I guess they can't ever cook. I'm saying it's okay to be, when I came across it, I was almost in disbelief. They can still try though, even if it's hard for them, even if it's difficult and it'll take them 10 times as long as you because they're literally brand new. They don't even know how to hold a knife or a pan. They can learn. They can learn if they don't, if they're not dealing with any problems, pain, anything like that, they can fucking learn how to do it. All right. I was a chef and I now can't cook because of disability and it annoys me. I can't do it now as I enjoyed. Have you looked into getting like a more seated setup? Because I know for me, sometimes if I know I'm going to do a lot of chopping and I'm going to do a lot of like peeling. Oh, okay. Never mind. If it's your hands, then that's fucked up. I'm sorry. If you genuinely like cooking, losing that fucking blows. It blows. I'm sorry about that. I hope it gets better. I'm sorry about that, chatter. But peeling is the worst. It fucking is. Peeling sucks. Peeling sucks. But you can ask stuff from your partner or whatever without it being an unreasonable ask, you know? This is actually exactly how me and my wife function. She has really chronic pain, so she handles the money and I work. Yeah. Managing all of the finances of a household, that's fucking work. That is work, okay? Making sure that you don't run out of the basic necessities, making sure you don't run out of toothpaste, out of soap, shampoo, conditioner, toilet paper, paper towels, planning appointments, going to the DMV to renew stuff and knowing when you need to renew it, renewing your passport or your ID or your driver's license. There's a lot of monotonous shit that needs to get done. You know? Here's a combo. My partner doesn't know how to cook, or no, partner that doesn't know how to cook and is afraid of drains. I help him learn my recipes
A
and I
list
clean
of
the
things
dishes.
I need around the house? How sweet of you, Denims.
I help him learn my recipes and I clean the dishes even though I hate doing them. Oh, that's so sweet. I don't know what being afraid of drains means, Monka Giga, but yeah. And also, I've tried over time to be less toxic on this end. Not toxic gaming wise. This is a very different topic, but I don't mean to make this sound like a fucking sob story, but I have overcome a lot. Okay. Quite a bit in life. And I used to be very harsh on other people because in my head, my thought was, I did it, you can fucking do it. Again, this does not apply to people who deal with chronic pain, people who deal with disabilities, any of that stuff. Because that is quite literally completely out of your control, right? Or if you're time poor, like you literally don't have the time for a lot of stuff. Yeah. But I used to be very like bootstrapsy, and it used to be like, just, I can do it. You can fucking do it. And I do think that like I push myself a bit too hard. I try to be superhuman, essentially. Like I had a fever and I got up and I did work for hours. I did work for like 4 hours. Because I was like, mind over matter, baby. Who cares that I'm dizzy? I can fucking do it. So like, probably an unhealthy amount. You know? And I have definitely tried to soften those edges. You know? And that's why I have the opinions that I have now and why I try very hard to be understanding. Because I used to be on the other side. And it's so fucked up because internally, I still hold myself to that standard. Like in my head, I am never doing enough. Like I have instilled in me completely, I will admit it, the toxic like American work ethic shit. It's in there. It's really fucking, it's in the back of my brain and it's never going to come out. But I've learned over the past many years, past decade, to not apply that to other people. And that took time. Which is why I try to try growing up in a military family. I'm still finding shit to unlearn. Yep. It's in me too, and I hate it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Like, I obviously don't believe in the bootstrap shit because it's dumb and it doesn't, it's horseshit. I only believe in like small scale stuff, right? Like, I believe in, I subscribe to the workaholism hardcore. Like, if I am alive and I have the ability to, I should be working. And I've had to like try and peel that off of me, remove that from my brain, because it's a very toxic mentality to have. And I will never apply it to other people because it's not a good idea. Why do you feel that way? Well, for a very long time, I was like terrified. Like, my biggest fear was being homeless. I was like, that was like my biggest fear. And I was like, if I don't succeed at what I do, that is what's going to happen to me. So I have to succeed. I have to do well in school. I have to get a job. I have to try as hard as I can doing streaming and stuff. And when that's instilled in you, it's like very hard to get it out. You know? I do believe that we have a natural desire to be productive, but not all labor has to be for financial gain. Yeah. The scarcity mentality is a big hurdle for so many people. Yeah. You have the same thought process as me. Yeah. I think it's just what happens when you grow up poor. You know? I think when you grow up poor, it's just like, oh, I can't rely on anyone. Ever. You know? That's how I am when it comes to receiving help. I feel as though I can do it myself if I just work harder, even though I don't believe in the bootstrap. Yeah, and like that's so like I have this cognitive dissonance about this where I hold myself to the standard, but I refuse to hold anyone else to that standard, right? Really, being poor made me think people are all I can rely on. I mean, probably different life experiences, I would imagine. Beauregard, thank you for the 5 gift subs. Thank you. Because like the field of sociology is real. You are a product of your environment. It doesn't matter if you think you're built different. Doesn't matter if you're coping. You are a product of your environment. Your life is determined by your zip code. At least partially. At least a good chunk of it. You know? Here we go. And so it's not fair to hold anyone else to that standard because you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what their life is like. You know what I mean? And so it's important. It's important. You know what they say about assuming? Assuming makes an ass out of you and I. So you guys, something. My sociologist brain is constantly arguing with my American brain about why I don't have a job amidst one of the worst times for seeking employment. Just like me, for real. An ass out of you and me. Wow. You guys are so smart. Sound like a George Bush quote? Yeah. I was being Kamala Harris for a moment, okay? But yeah, that's all. That's all I'm trying to talk about and chat about and stuff, you know? So if you do know people, like for anyone, if this relates to anyone at all, if you know people in your life that like, when they tell you that they can't cook, you know it's not weaponized incompetence and you know it's like literally because of their circumstances, they've never done it before and they're like terrified of the kitchen. I feel like you can gently nudge people. You know, what I found helps a lot is putting everything that someone might need on the table so that they don't get overwhelmed because it's like, okay, this is everything. Here are all the vegetables. Here are all the tools. Okay, I can do this. Even those meal planning services as well, you know, because it shows you everything. Or another one is like good videos because videos will show you everything, right? What if your roommates keep an incredibly dirty kitchen no matter how many times you tell them to clean it after themselves? I don't have anything to say except violent thoughts about that. People who don't clean, like, I hate those people. I hate them, genuinely. I hate you. If you are the type of person that exists in a space with someone else and you don't clean up after yourself. And it's just because you're lazy, to be clear. Because again, just in case, just again to remind everyone, obviously does not apply to people who deal with disabilities, because it's just not fair. It's not fair to apply it to them because their life is way fucking harder. I could not imagine not being able to use my body parts when I wanted to use them. Someone gave me the metaphor of a mecha pilot with a mecha. And I love it. I love it so much. The idea being that we are all pilots. You're like your brain, right? We're all pilots in a mecha, all right? And for some people, sometimes the controls stop working. You can't do it anymore. Like, it doesn't matter how hard you try to press as many buttons as you can, move the joysticks as much as you can. Nothing is happening. Did you just smoke weed? No, I just like living life at its peak and keeping a childlike joy that no one will ever rob me of. And I think that that's a good analogy for chronic pain, for like disabilities, for mental illness. If you're dealing with clinical depression, there's no buttons to press. There's no buttons, there's no joystick, there's no wheel, there's nothing in there. You're in there and you're like, I can't make this stupid body do anything. Driving with no power steering? Exactly. You know? And if you're in that position, that is fucked. And I hope you get better and all that other stuff. However, okay, if all the fucking buttons in your mecha are working just fine, you have no fucking excuse. Yeah, all the buttons are gone except the take your meds button. When you have almost full control, like 80% or more, and you are still refusing, that's on you. That point, that's on you. The meat mecha. Yes, our bodies are our mechs.
Okay, remember, chat. Mental illness and or stress can cause physical symptoms too. Be kind to yourself. Love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, I don't know, don't be hard on yourself. You know? Push yourself, but don't be hard on yourself. You know? You can do anything you want to. But sometimes, some days, it's just out of your control. But when it's not out of your control, push yourself. Sniff